Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Cunningham, Chief Marketing Officer, and welcome to the latest episode in our EMEA Business Update series. Whether you're viewing live right now or you're watching the subsequent recording, thanks for joining to learn some insights about how we're performing around the region. Let's start by taking a look at today's agenda. In a moment, I'm going to give you a very brief factual readout on where we are given the COVID-19 situation. But more importantly than that, in the following agenda, a number of our executive speakers will have a chance to talk about how we've responded and performed as a business in this context. And I think you'll see that we've both responded and performed extremely well. So as I said, I'm going to start with a brief update on what's happening around COVID-19. We'll then hear from Daniel Hurrell around the launch of next generation solutions. And already we're seeing significant opportunity in the technologies and vendors that NGS represents as a result of what's happened out there in the marketplace, and we believe beyond as well. Obviously, it's been a busy time for Comstor with the close of Cisco's year end very recently, and Willem will be joining us to give an update on that and what the preparations are for the year ahead as well. Steve Lockie and the team in the Middle East have been doing some really creative thinking about how to work more effectively as a team in response to the current situation, and Steve will give us an update on that. And we'll finally be hearing from RAC about how the SSA team have been employing digital thinking and digital engagement techniques to get closer to customers when physical meetings have not really been that possible. We're using the Venue platform today, our new virtual event management platform, and that will give us the opportunities to engage you in an interactive poll towards the conclusion of Daniel's session. There'll be a general Q&A at the end of the complete session, and the whole thing is followed by a post-event survey, which you can access in real time at the end of the event, but will also be posted out to you for completion after the event as well. So let's move on and give this brief factual update around COVID-19. I think as most of you will be aware in the audience, we've moved to a situation where our offices continue to open, and I've already had engagements in the last couple of days with people who are happy to be back in their office environment and very productive as a result. But of course, that's only happening where it's safe to do so, and we're maintaining that open office presence in line with the local government guidelines and advice. Again, as I think most people are aware, but just to reiterate, the previously announced travel restrictions remain in place until further notice. So the time's not quite right yet for us to start engaging in business travel. And of course, we'll keep you posted as to when we think that might be. But we continue to use the technology available to great effect, including, of course, what we're doing today. With that, I'd like to introduce Daniel Hurrell, who's going to talk us through the launch and the relevance of NGS. Daniel, over to you.
Thank you so much, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone. So according to David's request, we need to increase our cloud and recurring offers revenues. And this is the main reason why we decided to launch next generation solutions to make sure that we can unlock the recurring revenue based on different technology with cloud and as a service. As you know, the different markets, like the infrastructure, the network, or the collaboration, could grow on yearly basis about 4 to 5% max. With this in security, it's growing together with NGS about 20%, and the vendors, including the NGS, the growth is about 2 to 3 times on a yearly basis. So this is really, really significant. And what we could do is to take the benefit of the growth of this market, which will go from $150 billion to $250 billion in the next 3 years. So this is a very significant growth that NGS will help us to create an opportunity to grow our business in this environment. Next slide, please. So we will focus on different markets, and why these markets? Because these markets are the highest growth markets that we know in the security environment. So for the one who doesn't know, there is this zero trust access market. So the zero trust is more or less the security control tower. The zero trust access is the fact that we don't trust anything and anyone. Okay, we need to check, and the technology will check everything to make sure that the request is safe, or the email is safe, or the people who send you the email are the right one. So this is what we call the zero trust access. There is another market with a very high growth. It's the next generation SOC. And the next generation SOC, it's the security control tower. It checks everything. It's also have a good visibility of what happened on the network, and give alerts to the people and to the company to make sure that the infrastructure is safe. The next one is the secure cloud and DevOps. I don't know if you heard anything about this, but the DevOps and the SecOps, now called also the SecDevOps, are very popular. They are the one who creates the API. So you know these little connectors that you all know that will link different platforms or different services. These guys today are developing codes and producing codes without any security. And this is a huge market opportunity for us to add security to this world. And finally, we decided to focus on IoT OT security, which you know that with the smart cities, very popular about 4 or 5 years ago, but now it's more into everything connected. It could be from home, or in the very wide areas like the airports or the harbors. So all these areas need security, and this is why we decided to go with the IoT OT security market. Next slide. So what we did for the past 2 or 3 quarters is we have a look about 60 different vendors. We met them, we talked to them, we had some very good conversation, and we decided that this one, the Ping Identity for the Zero Trust Access, Netskope, Titus, Menlo, which is shown in this slide, would be the right one to partner with to offer a full solution to our resellers when it comes to the Zero Trust Access. If you remember Zero Trust Access, you don't trust anyone. So when it comes to the next gen SOC, which is again the control tower of the security, we decided to onboard the vendors which are highlighted here, like Vectra, Skybox, Firemon, Sumo Logic, and Cybereason, to make sure that we can offer again a turnkey solution to our resellers. Now, when it comes to cloud security and DevOps, okay, we also onboard Sumo Logic, Ping, and Menlo. And for the IoT OT security, we talked with CyberX. We signed with CyberX. We have been acquired lately by Microsoft, so we make the good choice. But also we are talking with another, and we have signed lately the agreement with Order, which is another vendor on the IoT OT security market. And we are very pleased to onboard Order because they are also into the Checkpoint price list. But this doesn't mean that we will run away from the existing and legacy vendors, which the one are deemed in this slide, like the F5, the Trend Micro, the Checkpoint, the Palo Alto, the Symantec, etc. Of course, we will keep on specifying these technologies, but when it comes to NGS focus, the one which are highlighted here are the main one. So we will go to the market with the full turnkey solutions on the highest market growth market, which are ZTA, next-gen, DevOps, and IoT security. So I would like you to really pay attention to these 4 different technologies, because this is the question. These are the questions to the next on the next slide, which and I would like you to take the poll and to answer this question. Next slide. So which of these technologies do you think will make a big impact? So we have 20 seconds. So you could all vote online, and we'll have real time, as you could see that you have real time answers. So it seems that the Zero Trust Access is leading the poll, following by the Secure Clouds and DevOps. Still the Zero Trust Access, which is, but it's still that you would like to have more information about all of these technologies. Thank you. So next slide, please. So if you want more information about how do you specify, how could you try it, how could you talk to your customers about this huge opportunity in front of us, which is the next generation solutions go-to-market brought by Westcon, please go back to your own organization, okay? Talk to your local NGS expert. That will allow us to create recurring revenue stream, and this is not just for renewal, but it's also for tech refresh. It's also for ELA opportunities and user license agreement opportunities. These are needs which could be monetized, and we could make a lot of business out of these technologies and go to market, and that will help us to make our business grow. So we have numerous materials available, like the NGS webpage. We got a playbook as well. We have the contact form. We have some EMEA webinars. It will start in September. So I would welcome everyone to go back to your NGS expert. And if you need any information, have more questions, please come to me, and I will be more than happy to answer. And it's my pleasure now to hand over to Mr. Willem Master de Haan for the Comstor performance. Thank you all.
So thank you very much, Daniel. And first of all, I'd like to compliment you with your nice red ears, which you have in the video. It looks very good on you. So thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for attending this this all hands. And what I would like to do is I would like to just talk a little bit about the Q4 of Cisco. As you know, we just finished Q4 from Cisco, the fiscal year of Cisco in the month of July. We haven't finished the month of July yet ourselves, but the Cisco quarter has officially finished. And I would like to first state that we were in quite some challenging circumstances. Now, as we all know, this whole pandemic has caused us quite some concerns, and we knew that from the beginning of Q4 that we would be struggling in terms of getting even close to the numbers which we had previous year. As if it wasn't bad enough, we still had, of course, the tail of Brexit, because many people don't think about Brexit anymore, but it's still there. So these were anything but ideal circumstances which we had over the last 4 months. When we look at the last 4 months or the last 3 months, we should also take into account that the decision was taken to change our credit insurance company. So we insure all our customers, and we did that through a company called Artradius, but we moved towards Euler. And in hindsight, the timing wasn't great because it caused a lot of additional work in terms of trying to get credit lines for the orders which we were taking in the month of July. Now, it's been absolutely amazing to see the amount of effort everybody, and not just the people in our sales offices, but also the people, and specifically the people in our warehouses, who throughout this pandemic have been working day in, day out to get our shipments towards our customers. And I think we all owe them an enormous appreciation and a big thank you for helping us through these difficult times. But also other departments, whether it's the finance department in terms of addressing the increased credit lines which we needed to fulfill our customer needs, whilst insurance companies like Euler as well, because of the pandemic, were decreasing the credit lines. It did not make things a lot easier for us. Also, the people in the various back office functionalities, sales ops, they did a tremendous job. I spoke with Russell Blackburn and some people from WGO lately, and they actually said that probably the month of July was the smoothest end of year close we've ever had. We didn't have a single hiccup during those last important days. So I'm extremely, extremely happy with that. Now, when we look at the results, it's amazing. The performance which we had when we started Q4, we were hesitative. We didn't know whether we were going to be doing 70% of our previous year revenue or 80%, right? Or maybe even 85%. But in all fairness, I don't think anybody ever expected that we would get so close. In fact, we ended up at 93% of the bookings from previous year. On a European perspective. In EMEA, if you look at EMEA, it was slightly less, but that's very much because they had a fantastic year last year, which we knew was not completely repeatable. So as we went into the month of July, we knew the last 3 days were going to be huge. We had to do something like $50 million of order intake in the last 3 days, and we did that. So a big thank you for everybody who was involved in this. I think given the circumstances, we did an outstanding job, and I'm really happy about this. Lastly, we also have a Distribution Champions Club, as you may well know. And for the Distribution Champions Club, the target was very high. But I'm very pleased to tell you that we've managed to achieve the 75%. We've managed to achieve the 85%. And the rumor is that we actually managed to achieve the 90%, which again gives us an interesting rebate payout for our quarter. So all in all, a fantastic close in these difficult circumstances, for which I'm very, very grateful to all of you across EMEA. Next slide, please. Now let's talk a little bit about fiscal year 21, because immediately when you close one fiscal year, obviously you start the next one. And I just want to give you a heads up on things which are top of our mind, or should be top of our mind, things we need to focus on and need to keep an eye on. So first of all, and I'm starting with that for a reason, is freight. As you can imagine, that this whole pandemic, which has happened over the last 3-4 months, have caused freight rates to go up substantially. And that means it puts a bigger pressure on us to try and find ways how we can recuperate that freight. Now, when I talk about freight, there is what we so-called inbound duty and freight. It's freight from Cisco towards us, and then there's of course the freight out. Most of you have little visibility on that inbound duty and freight, but it is an important factor in our costs. And that inbound duty and freight will increase from the start of August, so 1st of August. We will tweak a little bit the uplifts to make sure we protect ourselves against that. But also the outbound freight is something which has been increasing. And as a consequence, we need to try and find ways how we can recuperate more freight from our customers moving forward. And that is a responsibility all of us should take upon their shoulders. A second thing which will happen in regards to Cisco is net pricing. The people in Comsto will realize that when we buy goods from Cisco, we buy them at standard costs, and then we get a lot of additional discounts. That will change. In principle, by the way, it means that we are pre-financing a large amount of dollars, but we also get charged freight, etc., on that standard costs. That is going to change in November, and that will cause us some headaches because we need to closely monitor and investigate what the effect is on the way how we price and how we actually make our margins. So that's something which myself and Russell and the team and also the guys from WGO are working on very hardly at this moment. Now, we should have started about 4 or 5 months ago with a big small business investment plan, which included a lot of people which we were going to send out to Excel Cisco trainings, and we put that on hold. Clearly, because simply we couldn't send those people for training because of the pandemic, but secondly also because we were extremely concerned about the ability for those people to actually provide a return to the business, knowing that the business would be heavily disturbed by the pandemic. Now, as we move into the next fiscal year, it is time that we revisit this plan. We have to change some of the components. We've been very busy in doing that, but we have to restart the small business investment plan to make sure that we ramp up the Cisco designed business. And they need it because during the pandemic, the one area, the one segment in Cisco's business which has suffered most was small business. So we hope that as this pandemic hopefully is slowly going to pass away, and it will take a couple of months probably, if not more, but at some point we hope to see the growth in the small business again, and we need to accelerate that by a good small business investment plan. Tony Riley has been working very hard with the architecture leads in the marketing community. They built up a small business site which will be launched pretty rapidly, and all the Comstar people, you will hear more about the small business plan version 2 very quickly. Second thing which I would like to talk about is the efficiency and automation. Now, we've spoken a lot about that we have to increase the efficiency and automation, and the last 3-4 months during the pandemic was an extra reason. The experiences we had then was an extra reason for us to make sure that we accelerate the progress which we make on becoming more efficient, and also making more use of automated tools and having more systems linked between ourselves and Cisco. So Justin and his team, plus the IT organization, are spending an awful lot of time in regards to topics like net pricing, but also the Vistex automation, right? Now, including revisions that mean that darts are available immediately. A lot of our business, a growing part of our business, is renewals. And we have to make sure that the quoting of these renewals is further optimized and further automated. We have links with Cisco systems, but we don't have these automatic links with Meraki yet, and we would like to accomplish those. When we get darts, and based on those darts, those additional discounts, we want to send out quotes, we'd like to automate that so that there's no hands involvement needed in it. So you can expect a lot of progress and a lot of news around this efficiency and automation play, which we're currently going through. Now, we've talked a lot about software. Software is growing rapidly compared to the hardware. The hardware will continue to decline, and our software business with Cisco will continue to grow. The pandemic has fueled this even extra. More and more deals have been done in an annuity manner because it saves basically end users cash up front, and they pay on a monthly or on an annual basis. Now we have to continue pushing that software forward because that's what Cisco would like us to do. But equally, we have to make sure that we also keep focused on the services and the services renewal. This is basically an automatic engine which we grow year after year after year. And 5 years from now, we already know on the first day of the new fiscal year, we already know how many millions we will automatically get between brackets if we just renew the existing contracts. So very important, and you can expect a lot of focus on that. MSPs. Now, Cisco has been talking a lot about managed service providers. Cisco sees a lot of their existing partners, but also net new partners. They foresee a role as a managed service provider for Cisco technology in the future. And we've had a number of versions of business plans, and recently we've had a conversation with the team of the Nordics who came up with a very interesting business proposition, which they've tested out in the Benelux region. And this is very much based upon us providing an MSP program, and which we call an MSP Excellence Club, which is a loyalty program in which we kind of combine Edge as well as Mentor, the Mentor program, to onboard net new XSPs for Cisco. And these are partners which today may not even be selling Cisco. Talking about the Mentor program, we will go into a Mentoring 2 version of the program, which is now going to carry 3 different levels. You have an essential, basically the basic level, the essentials level, but you'll have a core mentor level and an alumni mentor level. And dependent on the different levels, you get more support from us, but we also expect more loyalty from our partners, as you can imagine. Last but not least, collaboration. We started a program on WebEx as a service and a collaboration program, an investment plan. It's a big bet which we did just before the COVID-19, and we have to make sure that we maximize the returns out of it. The last 3-4 months were not the easiest months, also not for WebEx. A, because a lot of licenses were giving out for free, but B, because the functionality of WebEx was not always ideal compared to Microsoft Teams or Zoom. Now that's been addressed. Every day now you'll see updates coming, and it will start to look more and more like Microsoft Teams with all the functionality involved. So in summary, these are the key topics of interest. There is, of course, also customer experience. This has been hanging above us for quite some time. We are closely monitoring the progress which René and his team are making with Sam on Palo Alto, and hopefully during the course of Q1, start of Q2, Cisco Q2, we hope to launch a Cisco version of that CX program to offer to our customers. This is all from my side. Once again, thank you everybody for your enormous support and commitment. I'm really looking forward for fiscal year 21, and it's my pleasure to hand over to Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Willem. Thank you very much everyone for calling in today. Welcome to a very hot and balmy Dubai, wherever you're calling from. Today what I'd like to do is just first of all we'll give you some numbers and a bit of an update as to how the business has performed during June, maybe even July, and then talk about what we're doing to really drive the business forward, because we have been in a bit of a holding pattern with the pandemic, and we've got some good initiatives that we've taken hold of, and hopefully some of that will resonate with you today as well. Overall, we had a great month. So we booked in June, billed out just over 32 million of revenue on a plan of 20. It's always nice to present when you've had a good month, as you can work out. And in terms of our order intake, a very healthy order intake as well to take us into the quarter. Cash collections were a record, and we also made great progress on our over 60-day percentage and the actual amount of money that was over 60 days. And that business performance came from some exceptional performance in our security business. Console line of business was stellar, and our mobility practice underneath the Unified Comms business also performing very well. I think one of the real highlights, though, has been our top 20 customers. They've grown 273% year on year, and that's from just under 15 million to 55 million, and that's down to the investments we made in the last year with our global systems integrator and service provider teams, putting new people into countries. Those people tended to be ex-service providers, so here ex-Etisalat or ex-Ooredoo, or up in Egypt, ex-Telecom Egypt, and they've made a real difference to that customer base, not just to the sales, but also the collectability, because of course these are blue chip organizations, so our credit risk has been much lower during the year. In terms of outlook, quote volume, so if you measure our pre-COVID levels and the level that we're currently quoting at, the volume of quotes, so the number of quotes, is up by 12%, and the value of quotes, so the overall dollar value, is up by 23%. So that bodes well for Q3. And around the development of our margins, the services business that obviously has taken a huge hit pre-COVID has finally returned to pre-COVID levels, both in training, PS, and embedded support. And the warehouse is back at pre-COVID levels, and that was also the case over the last few days. As many of you may know, we're just entering the Islamic Eid holidays, so that means that the guys are working incredibly hard to close out year-end, also Palo Alto year-end, and various other things today. So thank you very much for your support there. So taking that performance, which is great, and we have had some very good spend here with the government business, we really have been looking at how we can accelerate, how we can get the business back into a growth momentum, and away from a very structured format that we went into quite correctly when we got to the height of COVID. There's challenge in our new way of working, but clearly there's lots of opportunity as well. And what we've been trying to do is harvest those opportunities. We've got some fantastic ideas and projects running within our group, but sometimes we don't make the most of those or share them. So at the regional leadership team meeting we had at the end of June, we took some initiatives. We looked at 4 broad areas, and we all took it upon ourselves to go away and try and how we bring that back into our own businesses, and which aspects we could employ, and also really getting the business back into drive where we're getting our high potential employees, our smartest employees back, really engaged with the business, and making sure that we're getting those initiatives launched as quickly as we can to show the growth that we need. Can we move forward a slide? So the first of those initiatives we looked at was really around effective meetings and time management. So we went from in the office to out of the office. COVID caused us to really get very granular about our business, as we were when we went live on SAP or with the BPO, and look at every metric in our business every day, bookings, billings, shippings, is everything flowing correctly? And that took a lot of time. I can tell you, in our daily tracker meetings, that was a 90-minute meeting every single day of the week. It was horrendous. But when we actually went back and looked at that and said, well, which elements do we really need to look at? What really is important in our business as we start to come out of this COVID lockdown? We managed to get that 90-minute per day meeting down to 30 minutes every third day. It's a huge amount of time taken out. We looked at our leadership training, the important urgent charts you've seen there that many of you who've attended management training would have gone through, and looked at the workload we had and the meetings we had, and are they really important, or what can we delegate, what can we choose frankly not to do and get out of those meetings. We talked about the international nature of this. So Patrick Aronson down in APAC, heads the region there. Patrick told us about how he color codes his Outlook diary. I know it's a thing a lot of people do. I haven't done it, but by doing that now and looking at the meetings that are in there, is it customer meetings, vendor, one-to-ones, you can very quickly get a visual display of have you got the right mix of activities. And that's helped me personally, and I know some of my colleagues are working with that as well. And from the last call, I'm sure you all remember because it resonated with so many people, employee well-being, looking after ourselves and building time in that is critical. So for me, it was the commutes to our offices, 40 minutes in the morning, 40 minutes in the afternoon, podcasts, update on the champions of the UK, Europe and the world, Liverpool Football Club, of course, had to get it in there. And just that quality time to unwind. And we really got to build that back into our diaries, whether it's lunch, those meetings in the morning, and last but not least, time for your tribe. So those loved people that are closest to you, are we making sure that that's also built into our diaries? So that's given us a much better schedule, a much more balanced set of events. If we move on one slide. The next area really around remote management. So we moved to one-to-one telecasts every 30 minutes, run another session with somebody else. And they were very structured. It was the same old questions every week. I think what dawned on as I came back and spoke to Virginia Maniara, our HR lead in the Middle East, and said, Virginia, this thing's not quite working. We're not getting out of these online meetings what we need to get. And she'd coincidentally been in touch with her brother back in Kenya, whose company had adopted this 3x3x3x3 methodology. Very simple. We've been doing this for the last week with my direct reports, and just as part of the call, we talk about what have you been doing for the last 3 days? What do you plan to do for the next 3 days? What's happening in the next 3 weeks, and what's happening in the next 3 months? And it's really given us some great insight because we know what we're supposed to be doing most of the time. We know what our strategic priorities are, and that's the 3-week and 3-month work. But actually, some of the really interesting stuff here is what we're really spending our time on. So what happened in the last 3 days? Is it impacting our ability to really achieve those strategic goals? Is it tactical issues we need to work out in the business? And actually, for the next 3 days, same thing. Are there things that we should be doing or shouldn't be doing that are going to help us achieve our strategic goals? So this has been a great thing for me. I'm getting a lot out of it, and I know the team are starting to work on this as well. Next slide. So the third area the RLT worked on, it's rather perverse, is finding that meeting time. So one thing we had in the office was smoking rooms, canteens, meetings in the corridor, a meeting in the back of a taxi on the way between 2 appointments, where we could actually catch up, not just on the subject of the meeting we've been in, but everything else that runs around it. And clearly, we've lost that as a business. The perverse part of freeing up time for meetings is that I've actually got more time now to attend more meetings. But those meetings are where we're ghosting into the back of, this week it was our renewals team to see how they're driving the business, what the challenges are, and really understanding and connecting some dots there. And I'm on a lot of the other management meetings. I know David Grant's starting to attend some of the calls in Europe. You know, Willem and Rene, you've been doing this as well. But it's allowing us to really find a way to make sure that we are building that time and to make those connections, those unstructured interactions that we just didn't have before. It's worked very well. I think the thing that will change now is as we go back to the business and return to the office, some of those conversations will come in, but there's certainly, we need to work out how we manage that in the non-connected environment. Next slide, please. So last but certainly not least, my favorite area. So this was really moving from crisis to creativity and innovation. How do we get the business flying again? So we talked about return to the office. So typically, it would be the same old faces on these project teams. We didn't do that. We looked at the business, we looked at our high potential employees. Ian Jones led out a team of great people, some people that were desperate to get back to the office, and frankly, some people that were terrified to get back to the office. And that's led to a really rich approach, not just here locally, but we've taken great feedback from Howard Hines and the training team with training modules. The UK HR team have given us some great support. Phil Portsmouth and the HSE on risk, RAC, and the South Africa team. And by pooling all of this, and we said about all these great ideas we've got in the region, we've actually got a very robust return to the office plan, and the Middle East, Dubai office at least, will reopen first week in August for those people that do want to come back in and start to work back in the office. Another initiative we've taken, and again, taking best practice. So Sam Paris and Tim Long, Willem alluded earlier to this great work they're doing around the circuit, and that's a land, adopt, expand, and a renew initiative with Palo Alto. That has been led out in the region by Sheetal Kaura, our Palo Alto lead, who clearly won't be on the call, so she's closing all the business. She's forgiven today. But it's shown a significant additional sales pipeline and actually different sales go to market that we have to think about how we adopt into our business moving forward. So we'll be taking that as a project for the Middle East. We'll be extending it away from Palo Alto into other vendors, and Willem alluded to taking this to the Comstore line of business, and that very much is part of the plan. But, you know, really exciting initiative of harnessing those great ideas, bringing them back and making sure that the region benefits as a whole from that. We're on a journey. It's a journey that none of us have got a map for. Nobody's got all the answers, but we have got some phenomenal regional initiatives. We've got some phenomenally talented people. And if we can connect those together, it's clear that we can take this thing to the next level. Some of you, many of you, may be about to start the Eid holidays. So for those of you that are, very happy Eid Mubarak. And it's my delight to hand you over now to my colleague in Africa. We talked about some of the work we've been doing together already, but Rack, over to you.
Thanks, Steve, and hello, everybody. And yeah, great to be able to present to you and chat to you all today. So I want to give you a little bit of an update, start off with, you know, a little bit what's happening in Sub-Saharan Africa, but also talk to you about some of the initiatives, you know, that Willem, Steve, and Daniel have sort of alluded to around, you know, innovation and some of the things that we've been doing. So just firstly, I think Q1 was a really tough time for Sub-Saharan Africa. Many of you will know that, you know, some of the strictest lockdowns in the world were in place here, but not only that, we really struggled for about 6 to 8 weeks to get physical goods through borders and actually delivered to customers. So everything really came to quite a grinding halt. We ended up, you know, off plan. However, we managed to control the cost base really well to bridge the gap between the margin miss. Unfortunately, we also had some really adverse Forex impact in South Africa, where the Rand is extremely volatile. That hurt us overall for the quarter. But there was an amazing lesson that we learned in that time, and Willem's spoken about, and I think, you know, a couple of guys have spoken about how important software and recurring revenue is for our business. We fundamentally survived on that in Q1 because we weren't able to deliver a lot of physical products. So it's really taught us a lesson about how important that is and why we need to grow that and continue to grow that out. June, on the other hand, was a really good start to Q2. Revenue was just on 18.3 million and kind of flat year on year. which is a great place to be at the moment. Gross profit was ahead of plan, and as a result, we started off the quarter in a very strong position. We've also collected a lot of aged debt that was really outstanding, and we need that cash, and that's really helped us. And what's pleasing to see is that quote volumes have come back to sort of a year-on-year level. So that's a really good indicator of the activity levels and things that are happening out there. So we're looking at having a really good Q2, hopefully 22% of EBITDA plan, and try and catch up for some of the challenges we had in Q1. Really strong performance in our collab and networking business in the month of June, and hoping we can drive that through for the rest of the quarter. If we could move to the next slide, please. So one of the things we've looked at is, if in this environment, how do we actually remain connected to our customers if we're so isolated? Right? Processing the transactions and things that we do is obviously critical to our business. But enablement, working with partners, taking them on a journey, that's a really big part of what we do. And we're so used to doing that face-to-face, meeting with partners, helping them understand the new technologies that the vendors have, helping them go down a certification route. So how do we actually do that now in a digital world was one of the things that we looked at, particularly in Q1. So through a combination of a couple of platforms that we've pulled together, one of the things that we drove out, and really this is an example, but there are a couple of others as well, we created something called Microsoft World, which really allowed us to help enable partners around Microsoft's 3 clouds. As some of you will know, Microsoft is our second biggest vendor across sub-Saharan Africa. It's a really important partner for us. And we've closed off a really strong financial year with them. So the focus here is how do we take partners on a journey, and how do we take the other vendors that we have where there's a huge opportunity and bring that together. So we created this portal, we've promoted it quite actively, and actually if we move to the next slide, I'll give you a few statistics on sort of what we've seen so far. So, we've got 520 unique resellers who signed up for this, and we've already generated 106 leads. And that's the nice thing, because this is a digital platform, we can actually go through from enablement right through to lead generation and actually pass it on to our sales team. The interesting thing as well was the activation channels. And yes, we posted on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, but we had amazing 142 interactions from our own website and banner ads that we promoted out into the market. The really key thing here is that we got 58 resellers who already bought from us. They bought other products, some security products, some collaboration network, maybe the Comstore side, who actually signed up to Microsoft World and started driving out their Microsoft platforms as well. Then potentially we got about 48 net new customers. So 48 customers we have never dealt with signed up to go through the journey. And they are an opportunity for us to convert them into obviously revenue earning customers. We got 10 of those so far already onboarded onto PartnerView, and 16 onboarding onto Blue Sky. And this is all since the 1st of June when we've launched this. So I actually came from a meeting just before this with Microsoft's executives in the region, and they are absolutely blown away by what we're doing here. We've got a couple more of these to go down the line. And I think this is really important that we all understand it. And it's also available to all of you. So around the world, even though we don't necessarily sell Microsoft in every single one of our geographies, if you want to go through the learning, you're welcome to sign up for it. You can make use of it as well and see how the vendors that we are working with in your regions may want to be moving workloads into Azure and what it is that they may be looking at. So I encourage you all, take some time, sign up for it, and you're welcome to use it. If we go to the next slide, please. So the other thing we ran about 2 weeks ago, using the same platform that we're using now, is we ran a small business summit for Cisco. And it was probably one of the best events we've ever had. 229 people joined the event. And we had a huge amount of engagements. What we even did was we had a French and Portuguese speaking breakout session for one of the keynotes. We were able to deliver the event in multiple languages. We had a more motivational speaker who was phenomenal, who came on board and spoke to the partners. And I don't think, a couple of things that stand out for me in this. I don't think we've ever had an event where we've had that many people attend and so successfully in terms of the invites sent out and the responsiveness. Secondly, we were able to run this event simultaneously across the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. Normally, we'd have to take an event and replicate it country by country in a physical way, and at a much more significant cost. We took 3 hours out of everyone's diary, and we had phenomenal feedback from Cisco. A number of people at Cisco reached out to thank us and to ask how they could do more of this, and even customers who reached out to say it was a great event and it was really well run. So we're doing another one of these in a week. And I know around the world, we are making more use of this platform as a way to engage with our customers and continue to keep interacting with them. So if we can go to the next slide, and I think this is my final slide, is also about keeping connected internally. Steve called it looking after the tribe and all the loved ones as well, and also internally. And over the last couple of months, not being able to meet each other in lockdowns or curfews, and across the geographies that we operate in, we've had a social committee team who've come up with a bunch of brilliant ideas. We've had karaoke evenings. Some of you will know we generally have a pub evening on a Wednesday. We've sort of done that in a virtual way. We've had a few resident DJs in the business who played music at month end and quarter ends, just keeping everybody connected and motivated. And it's really wonderful to see how that interaction has worked and how many people are joining it. So I suppose in summary, we've got some phenomenal tools out there. We have a lot of innovation that we're doing to try and drive a new type of engagement in this world. And the call out to you is really to make use of those and to stay connected to your customers and to each other. We are only going to succeed in terms of driving our business forward if we're always working with our customers, and also our teams are collaborating. And please use the tools that are available, take some opportunity to do some of the innovation, and I wish you all the very best. And I'm now going to hand back to Paul for the Q&A.
Great. Many thanks, Rak, and thanks to all our other speakers today as well. We're now going to move to a Q&A. You'll see in the comment field to the right of your screen the opportunity to enter your questions, and already we've had some in from the audience today. And as I said, at the end of the event, there'll be a survey for you to complete as well. But let's move to the Q&A, and I'm going to take the questions in the order they've arrived. They don't seem to be particularly weighted in terms of voting and so on. And our first question actually relates to a specific vendor. And the question relates to Symantec. And the question runs, Symantec has been suffering from some organizational changes and staff departures. And the question is, which products do you want to save? I guess the real meaning of the question here is, how do we view the Symantec relationship post the Broadcom acquisition? And what's our kind of response to what's going on? And Daniel, I guess with security and NGS in mind, I should address this question to you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for a very good question. Yes, we all been through some downturn with Symantec when has been acquired by Broadcom last year at this time. And I need to tell you that it was quite difficult for us to really understand what Broadcom would like to do with the Symantec and Blue Coat technologies. And we've been through a few quarters of massive questions, but now it's over. It's behind us. We move forward. We have a very good relationship with Symantec. In fact, they want to, their main strategy is to retain and expand with the same accounts. So yes, there is a lot of people who left the Symantec business the past half a year, but there is also some very good one who remains and made a very good job. So the results, I'm a kind of guy of facts and figures. So yes, we had two very difficult quarters with Symantec last year, Q3 and Q4. But since Q1, we could see this the trend, the reverse trend, make fantastic business in Q1, but even at the end of Q4, Q1 was very, very good for us, and June was exceptional. And I need to say, because at the end of the quarter for Broadcom in July, so we will reach a month record in order intake as well as invoicing. So when it comes to technology, because that was a piece of the question also, there is four areas where Broadcom would like to invest and to focus on. There is the first one is the endpoint security, of course. This is a legacy, Symantec legacy, Norton, Symantec, and Broadcom. So they will keep on focusing on this technology. There is the email security and web security, where they are good at, coming from also Symantec and Blue Coat. And there is the new, let's say, trendy waves, like you all heard about CASB, or you have heard also about DLP and SASE. The SASE is quite recent, but you will know more about the SASE approach. And I asked my team to work on a SASE playbook to be seen in the market as a go-to partner when it comes to the SASE technologies. So Symantec would like us to focus on that. And the last one is the privilege access management, which belongs to the zero trust access market that I mentioned in my presentation. So all of these four technologies that we will focus on are either Symantec or Blue Coat, or computer associated technology as well, where we are doing everything we can to get access to. So I think this answers the question.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Our next question, I think, Willem, I'll come to you for this one. You mentioned the increased focus on automation and driving efficiencies in the forward-looking plan. And the question is really about how will these changes affect the end-to-end process, and what are the kinds of efficiencies and improvements we're looking to gain?
So, okay, it's a very good question. I'll try to answer it in a summarized form. So, I'm sure people will recall that when we investigated our processes, we came to the conclusion that we had, I think, 170 steps, and an average order would cost us about 72 minutes. So the amount of manual interaction which we have to do from receiving, or basically from sending a quote up to actually delivering the goods is just tremendous. And a lot of those manual interactions, they have to happen because we need to subtract data from different sources. So if we have increased automation, like for example, the Vistex automation, then it means that automatically, theoretically, it still needs to happen. But the moment Cisco would be enlisting a dart on a certain deal, that could theoretically trigger us sending out a quote to the reseller fully automatically without involvement of any single tip of a finger. And obviously that makes everything a lot more easier than it is today.
Sure. Okay. Good answer, Willem. Thank you. So the next question refers to a thing that quite a few people mentioned actually, which is this notion of a recurring revenue model and the fact it can bring stability into our forward view of the business. The question specifically relates to next generation. So Daniel, I'll come to you first, but Rak, perhaps you could comment on your experience as well after Daniel comments first on next gen. Daniel?
Yeah, it was our goal. Thank you again for this very good question. It was our goal to build the revenue stream which could bring us some recurring revenues, and that could be on a monthly base, that could be on a yearly base. But the vendors that we did onboard are mainly software license vendors or cloud vendors that will bring us the recurring offers. So yes, it is one of the main focus asking the vendors to work with us. It was to have the recurring offers and to make sure that we can year after year build on this amount of business sold the previous year. So it's going back also to the point raised by Steve on the circuit. Okay, you have this renewal piece where you have several options. You can renew one for one, but you have also an opportunity for the tech refresh. you have an opportunity for the upsell 1 year to 3 years, but you have also the last opportunity that could be to build the renewal to an ELA, okay, to an user license agreement. And this also is a next generation focus, solutions vendor focus, which will give us the opportunity to have a larger business with the NGS vendors.
Sure. Thank you, Daniel. And Rak, you've been early into this with Blue Sky and so on. Any comments you want to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And obviously, Daniel covered it from an NGS perspective. I think, if you look at our overall strategy as a company, we've called out that we want to increase our recurring revenues and our software sales. It's up in some of the strategic targets that we've set. It's logical, I suppose. It would be nice, as Willem even said, to start each month or quarter or year knowing that we already have some opportunities that we just have to renew. It's about then making sure that there's adoption and usage by customers, which means constant engagement with them, and that's the life cycle. So this all comes together very strategically. Certainly in the next gen space, we've looked at vendors in that area, but it also applies to all of our existing vendors as they're evolving, and most of them are moving towards similar sort of models, and they need our support to make that happen.
Great. Okay, thank you. The next question, I'll come to Willem actually. So, we know Cisco is quite an acquisitive business, and this is just one example. I'm sure there are others as well. But with Cisco's recent intent to acquire Thousand Eyes, and I'm sure other companies that we're aware of, what additional solutions and services does this bring to Comstor? And I guess also, how do we go about getting those to the market?
All right. So, yeah, I'm a bit surprised about this question. So, I mean, I know a little bit about Thousand Eyes because I happened to pick up on this message as well. And from what I understand, this is very much about the digital experience monitoring. So it's like a next generation of monitoring the network, but the networks have basically changed. Where in the old days we had private networks, now today a network is a combination of stuff you own, stuff you don't own, but you lease, stuff you actually pay a subscription for. And Thousand Eyes is basically a vendor which is fairly young. It's only in the market for like 8 or 9 years, who've come up with a very nice suite of solutions for that. A platform which also gets up to the end user level. So it's not just about the network, but also the user experience. Now, what is that going to mean for us? I have no clue. Because first of all, we would need to understand whether this product is going to be on our price list, and as of when it's going to be on our price list. Will they continue selling it as Thousand Eyes? Will they continue selling it through the existing distribution channels, or will it go through the Cisco channels? There's a lot of questions which we would need to have answers for before we could know what impact this could have to us. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's all I can say about it right now because this is still fairly fresh.
No, it's a perfectly reasonable answer, Willem, as I'd expect. Okay, so we've got time for one more question before we wrap up for the session. And Steve, you're not left out by any means. The question is this: with the emphasis on reducing dependency on oil, Middle Eastern countries are formulating strategies to boost tech, particularly around things like 5G and IoT. What are we doing to align ourselves with this? And I've got a view on this as well, but since it relates to Middle East, I'll come to you first.
What makes you think I don't know? Thank you, Paul. Yeah, it is. It's been really the key. I mean, you saw the numbers that we've turned in over the last few months. The mid-market, our traditional reseller base, have really struggled. As I think we've seen this also in Europe. Where we've been fortunate is that government and these large-scale introductions of new technology have forged ahead because we are on a digital transformation journey. The infrastructure has to be there. And the companies that are being looked at to provide that are the state telcos, the infrastructure providers, the Siemens, the Honeywells of this world, the government's own security agencies. And it's those companies that we aligned with and we invested in very heavily over the last 3 years. So yes, call it a fortunate set of circumstances, but we are absolutely laser aligned now on the companies that are winning that business, and hence we're seeing that elevated business in our portfolio when some of our competitors, frankly, are really struggling at the moment.
Sure. And just from my point of view, just so the audience is aware, we have kicked off some very early stage discovery and research around these areas and how it might translate into opportunity for Westcon Comstor. So we'll be sharing more of that at the appropriate time. Unfortunately, we do want to run the call to schedule today, so we are going to close questions there. But if I could just move to the final slide, we'll wrap things up and invite you to participate in the survey. So as I said, we offer the opportunity to give us feedback. We do welcome it. It's an important part of the process. You'll see the survey appear again to the right-hand side of your Q&A, where the Q&A panel was just now. If you're watching the recording, the Q&A, of course, will have been closed, but you can still ask questions via the email address communications.emea@westcongroup.com. The other thing we do always make sure we do on these events is we have recorded the questions that came in that we weren't able to answer today, and we will get those back out to the whole group as part of the follow-up responding to the survey. With that, I'd like to thank all of our speakers today. Thank you for participating, for your questions, which challenged us at times. We look forward to seeing you again on a future business update. But in the meantime, have a great rest of your working day. Thank you.
Thank you. Leave the barrel.